off the cuff with WebTech. Below in the description will be a link that goes someplace that shows the original request, and I will do one take if possible for doing this off the cuff with WebTech. Someone posted a series of questions and whatabouts and hypotheticals and wants to know my opinion on something. Since this is purely an opinion piece, and I deliberately did not look up exactly what the person was saying. I just cut and pasted it because it seems to be a person giving me something interesting to do, probably because they saw how uninteresting all my videos have been recently. And if I do this more than one take, I'll say how many takes it's been. I'll just keep a tally count. If a devout Christian should be suspected or proven to be lying to you, then you might also assume they only do so for the distinct pleasure of their God. I wouldn't make such a presumption because I don't make such presumptions about people's motivations. There is no way to know that, but let's dismantle this really quickly. I say that every time, and it takes an hour. If someone claims to be a devout Christian and is shown to be lying to me, specifically, an atheist, or would they do that for the distinct pleasure of their God? That's a lot of layers to it. But what if I suspect only? I wouldn't suspect they're doing it for their God. People who profess to believe in the flying spaghetti monster don't actually believe in the flying spaghetti monster. Pastafarian forever. Peace and long life and extra sauce. People say things, and you should never assume that they're actually telling you the truth. I tell that to everybody. Don't assume someone's telling you the truth. Why? Well, we should assume that from the beginning. No, this is the internet. That's literally, no. We don't do that. Don't assume a person's being honest, because I can make an AI version of myself, have it spit out videos every day, probably do a better job, honestly. Yes, I'm not saying I did the experiment. I said I'm not going to do it. No, really, I suck, apparently. AI isn't scary. It's just so tempting to... Is it exploitation if the bot's begging for it? I mean, seriously. There's some serious waifu stuff people are doing already. Don't lie, you looked it up. So anyway, but I wouldn't make such an assumption about a person claiming to be a devout Christian, or I would also might mention that a lot of atheists presume there might be a God. They just say, like me, I'm a positive atheist. I don't believe that there's a God, and that has a giant asterisk on it because that's too grandiose and vulgar. I mean, it's a vulgar level of vagueness. I don't believe in any of the gods as professed by any religion that has ever existed, because I've looked into all of them, and every one of them got basic shit wrong and made presumptions that are basically mystical based. That doesn't mean there isn't a God. That doesn't mean that I believe there can't be a God. I'm just saying you have to parameterize it. As an atheist, I must state, I don't know if there's a God. Then they'll yell agnostic. No, I'm positively stating there is no God, as is defined in every language that uses a word God or something like it. Every single one of them is saying something that I don't believe in. But is there something like a God that could... Sure. I mean, it could be as bad as Thanos or as good as Thanos, depending on your opinion. By the way, yes, this is off topic. The current presumption here is that Thanos was suffering from literally a mental illness. He did something terrible, and he suffered post-traumatic stress syndrome. He has every sign of it. And if he received mental health care, he wouldn't have done any of it. Think about that for a minute. Any of you could be the Mad Titan. Anyway, that said, if an atheist known to profess a life of godliness or godlessness, should be found lying to you, could you reasonably assume they only lie for personal reasons? No, because a person, an atheist, just like a Christian, could be lying for altruistic reasons. They might be doing what a religious person would say is a pious lie. They're lying because it's the only way to get something done, because they're in a world full of people that aren't in the same boat. I'm in a world that isn't filled with atheists. We're not a minority. It's just that we're maybe a silent population. Most people don't care one way or another. They just go to church because it's part of social stuff. So they're not really Christians. They aren't atheists professing it because they go into social environments, and a lot of people really don't like atheists, but They don't really believe in a God. There are a ridiculously large number of people that are professionally listed as being professors of theology that literally do not believe in any gods for the same reason I do. They know that every professed version of a god is false. And if you define gods as the definitions we use, they know that there is no such thing. And just like me, they'll say, I don't know if there is a God, but I know that we're a bunch of blind mice. We don't know if it's an elephant or a stick or a hose or, a kitten. We don't know anything. We're stupid, really smart monkeys that learned how to build rockets and unfortunately put Elon Musk in charge, which, sad to say, is probably the best person for the job right now. Yeah, I said it. I've been looking into it, and the only thing he's good at, besides actually, shoving electric vehicles into place because somebody had to do it eventually, again, even though they were very popular in the 1920s, but we won't go into that. I already did a bunch of videos about that shit. But we're stuck with Elon because, honestly, we needed somebody to do this. And that actually goes double for landing on Mars. I hate saying it, but privatizing space exploration is working. Mostly because it's a fad. But it's leaps and bounds. I mean, they 3D print the tanks. But anyway, let's move on. Altruism in atheists happens too. You could have a religious person and an atheist both tell exactly the same lie. There's actually, I could bring up examples if I work really hard at it. And they do it for completely different religious or belief system based things, but the real reason they do it is they're trying to make the world a better place. Lying to make the world a better place always makes you look like a liar, but is it really wrong? If I tell everybody planting 200 trees will offset your carbon footprint, and I turned out to be not right, or worse, I didn't know if that was accurate. I actually did the calculations and found out it's actually 256 trees, but I tell people to do 300, but I said round number 200, that would help. I mean, literally planting your own farm and just doing it responsibly may be more effective because you don't just sink carbon, you consume it. But me saying, yeah, just go out and plant 200 trees and call it good, and, maybe I was lying to get people all motivated off their butt. Remember that whole thing where everybody was, let's plant 1 billion trees? Which is a drop in the bucket. But if 1 billion people planted 200 trees, that'd be 200 billion trees. Think about it. We could have 1 trillion trees if everybody planted 200, period, full stop. Right? Well, no, that's the wrong number. But if you did the number that should be done, 256 or more, it would be. But I'd be kind of lying. Can I do that for personal reasons? I'm an atheist. You could decide that I have no morals and I'm doing everything for my own benefit, even though it's about saving the planet and the whales and you and your mama too. Your brother and your sister. But no, you can't assume it's for personal reasons for me, and you can't assume it's for God for a religious person. I would never make assumptions like that. That's a trap. There are a lot of things I will never know, especially concerning this world and why some inhabitants of this wondrous place feign they've harnessed and possess such absolute and irrefutable knowledge. That's another thing. I state flat out, I know something for a fact. But again, that's got the giant 80-foot tall asterisk that's made out of neon bulbs flashing at you saying, from my limited view of the world and my limited experience, I don't know how to speak French. Me commenting on anything in French should be presumed to be the words of a buffoon, yours truly. And I do it because everybody makes fun of the French because of the language. And escargot and shit. But I don't know what I'm talking about. Anybody who takes offense at a fool like me commenting on something, well, that was intentional if you're easily offended. But I don't feign absolute knowledge on things unless it's the opposite. If someone goes out of their way to prove the earth is flat, and it's easily proven that it isn't flat, I will say it's round. It isn't. It's not completely spherical. It's an imperfect sphere. But that's more correct to the point that it almost doesn't matter. I mean, you'll be off by 50 feet if you do the calculations as absolutes, but 50 feet is pretty damn good. Actually, it's 110 feet in some places. I'll do a video on that. But the absolute knowledge it isn't flat is based on I know what it's not. There's a whole SCP thing about that. It's an exercise in deductive or reductive or seductive reasoning. Yes, I've had a coffee, can you tell? Let's move on. where too many young and budding scientists cruelly discluded from speaking out loud on their own ideas and adopted understanding, snuffed out and silenced. If you want to know about this, you can actually look up a poll. I can't remember where it is. There's a poll of scientists. Have you been told not to talk, basically shut up because you didn't go along with the scientific consensus? And this happens, if you're not aware of it, about 0.1 or 0.5% of the time. 1 in 200 scientists are told shut up. But that's like first-year students mostly. Heavy-duty ones have been told to shut up because they obsessed over something outside of their wheelhouse. But on that, this is actually pretty rare. But I don't know where to find the proof of it, so I can't cite a citation here. Perhaps some were barred from ever effectively sharing those realizations and made discoveries during those mostly unfair juvenile years. Maybe they were just too shy to pipe up and tell it, petrified with fear that a teacher or even a fellow classmate might think them dumb for trying to explain a perspective gleaned from experience that superior empirical knowledge holds water better for them than what the scientific community offers. The scientific community is overwhelmingly based on empirical data. Period. It already is. This is something that's self-checked fairly well. It's not perfect. It's one of the few examples of self-regulation or self-checking that really works because they love getting gotchas on each other. There are a few things that people won't study, mostly because it goes off the rails and goes into a rabbit hole. That's something that people should look into, like fusion power. There's a lot of people who, I have experience with it, but it's spooky stuff. It's like studying ball lightning. If you actually study it, yeah, we really do need to know how it works because that is probably going to tell us how to make a sustained ball of energy, maybe. But they don't like talking about it because it really sounds sci-fi. I mean, oh, really? We just fire a lightning bolt at some gas and we get a fusion power source? And guess what? That really is almost exactly what it is. But hey, but it doesn't work that simply. It's actually much more detailed. But it's not that far off. I mean, think about it. I mean, if it happens naturally, we should emulate it, right? That sounds wrong. Let's move on. I guess my final question to ask go as such. What is the real reason that scientists continue to do their mass ritual lies daily to stick to their guns as a group to more effectively indoctrinate and fool the masses? They don't. There are some supremely uncreative scientists, they're just technical people, who don't explore further. I was around a lot of technicians that didn't want to hack Windows 95, 98, Millennium, etc., or Mac OS to make it work better because they were afraid of lawyers or because they just said, I don't know what I'm doing, so I'm scared. Some of us are built different. But other than that, no, they're not doing this. And using the word ritual smacks of you bringing up a subject matter I debunk a lot of the time. But anyway, let's move on. That's my opinion. Why offer medicines and perform invasive procedures on worried patients? Is the deception pushed by men of diverse scientific learning trying to do a duty for the community, chip away at and erode health, slowly poisoning with their life or death situation treatments that are completely incapable of returning one's vitality and raising health? Why would any good person continue such a course, utilizing methods long known to never cure, expressly exacerbate the diseases? Now we're getting to the point you're talking about some medical problem that you have experience with that I don't. Let's bring up cancer. Most people who have cancer, if they get treated early enough, this is the financial thing where if you're poor, you're going to die. Most of them survive. The 5-year survival rating. I don't know what you're talking about, and you're not being specific, and I think you're avoiding it because then I would address it specifically, but I don't know. This sounds like you've had personal experiences, and if I look through your comments previously, I might know what it is. But that sounds like a bias born from really bad experiences, and if you tell me what that specific one is, I can address it. But as for the other questions, I hope I've answered them correctly. Now, below will be a link only to the comment as an archive, if it's still up. I didn't bother archiving it when I saw it. And I hope that this has been informative for anybody. But again, never make these assumptions and never extrapolate from one experience to all the others unless it's really, really a good fit. That's all I've got to say as a takeaway if you want to. Anyway, I'll title it some way that you can find the video response. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Good luck with that. And if you'd like to open up about what this is really about, that would be much more specific and much better. and I hope you don't hate me for the answer I give.